Let's talk about conditional if blocks and kind of how an app makes decisions. So here's the blocks you were just building, and when a text comes in from the user, or not from the user, but sorry, from another phone, this event handler gets triggered. So the event is message received, and then we do some response, right? So this is the response to some text coming to the phone, and in this case the response is to send back a text. Now, we are going to do different things depending on what it is the person texts us. So what we have here is what's called a Boolean condition, okay? And Boolean is just a fancy word for means true or false, right? So this is what's called a Boolean condition, and it means true or false. So you always have to stick inside this test, you have to stick some kind of comparison here. It doesn't have to be equals, but somehow it has to evaluate to true or false. And in this case, we check, is the text being sent in JOIN, right? If it is, if it's true, we do this then part, right? So the then part, all these blocks only get done if this is true, and if it's false, we do the else part. So this else part. So you're only going to do these blocks down here if this Boolean expression is false. Okay? So, kind of the way we think of event handlers is now different, right? So in one of the previous lessons I was talking about an event handler is, when some event you're going to do a bunch of instructions. And now you got to think of it as, well, you might do some instructions, and some of the instructions within there you might only do if some test is true or false, right? And sometimes it's an if and sometimes it's an if else. But what you're going to have now is not just a straight line for your response, but almost more like a tree and branches, right? So here's a test that you ask, and maybe if the test is true, you might do this instruction. If it's false, do this instruction or this block. And then once you do those instructions, you might go on and do some other things. But these branches, we call them if-else branches, are the kind of the way that you can have kind of artificial intelligence, right? So your app can ask questions. They can be completely complex, sophisticated questions of many different levels, right? And really your response to your event becomes this kind of complex, branched set of instructions.